What if I told you that the key to winning her back wasn't in begging or pleading, but in completely transforming yourself? She walked away. You felt the sting of rejection, but now she's the one reaching out, begging for another chance. Why? Because in her absence, you found something more valuable than her attention. You found your true power. The pain of losing her can either break you, or it can be the catalyst that pushes you to become unrecognizable, a man so strong and unshakable that she can't help but wonder what she missed. The truth is this: it's not her absence that makes you stronger, it's what you become in the process. If you're ready to stop being the man she left behind and start being the man she now desperately wants back, hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, and comment below, "I control my destiny." Let's dive in. Number 1. She expected you to break, but you rose instead. She walked away believing she had the upper hand. She believed you'd fall apart, sink into desperation, and sit quietly in the shadow of her absence. That's what she expected. Because that's how most men react. They grieve loudly, spiral emotionally, and in doing so confirm her belief that she is the center of their world. But what she didn't account for was your resolve. What she couldn't predict was that you'd become unbreakable. In the aftermath of heartbreak, the average man seeks sympathy, answers, and closure, but the Stoic man seeks discipline, silence, and transformation. You didn't chase, you didn't beg, you took the pain and transmuted it, turning heartbreak into fuel. You hit the gym, you pushed forward in your career, you dove deep into your mind, healing the cracks not with revenge, but with intention. And as you sharpened your body and mind, you became someone new, someone stronger, someone unavailable, and this is what started to shake her confidence. At first, she waited for a message. She expected the late night text, the emotional check-in, and the obvious signs that she still mattered, but they never came. Instead, your silence echoed louder than any words ever could. It made her wonder, did he really move on? Was I wrong about his weakness? This is when the power began to shift, not because you tried to shift it, but because you refused to react. That is the Stoic edge. You didn't play the game, you outgrew the board. This transformation wasn't a strategy, it was survival. When you took your focus off her and placed it entirely on your purpose, something else happened. Your silence became a mirror that reflected her own doubts, insecurities, and misjudgments. She thought you'd always be there. Instead, you became a ghost, but not the kind that haunts with sadness. You became a ghost that haunts with strength. Your evolution, quiet and consistent, made her presence irrelevant, and as you continued to rise, she remained stuck. Because while she relied on your emotional collapse to feed her ego, you relied on discipline to fuel your growth. And that growth became visible. It wasn't about flexing on social media or chasing validation. It was about moving in such alignment with your purpose that her opinion no longer had space in your mind. And that breaks her, not anger, insults, or bitterness, but indifference. The knowledge that you didn't just survive her leaving, you became better because of it. You didn't need her to collapse in regret. You became the kind of man who doesn't require closure, approval, or permission. That realization hits harder than anything you could have said. Let her wonder. Let her wait for the message that never comes. Let her try to reconcile the man she walked away from with the man she can no longer reach. Because now the roles have reversed. She is left with questions, and you are the one with peace. Now speak out and comment below, "I control my mind, no one else does." Number 2. Your silence and growth are her greatest defeat. After the breakup, she expected you to chase, call, and try to prove that you couldn't live without her. That's what most men do, what feeds her ego. She expected texts filled with longing, subtle stories posted for her attention, and signs that you were still orbiting her world. But when all she was met with was silence, she didn't feel powerful. She felt confused. That silence wasn't just a void. It became a mirror reflecting her own insecurities. Why hasn't he reached out? Is he over me already? Did I mean less to him than I thought? This is where your strength begins to speak without a single word. Every day you say nothing, you say everything. You're no longer proving your value to her, you're embodying it. Your silence isn't about playing hard to get, it's the natural result of your redirection. You've moved your focus toward your health, mindset, and mission. You're no longer a man who needs attention to feel significant. You are building, quietly, patiently, powerfully. And here's the paradox. The more you grow without her, the more she starts to shrink in her own eyes. Her confidence in walking away begins to feel fragile. Because you didn't fall apart. You didn't beg. You didn't even blink. While she was watching, hoping for signs of emotional collapse, she found something far more threatening. Your stability. She can't quite understand how you've become even better without her. But that discomfort? That's the first seed of regret. The Stoic response to loss is never loud. It's not revenge, it's not ego, it's transformation. And that's exactly what you've done. You didn't get louder, you got sharper. You didn't flaunt a rebound, you rebuilt your foundations. Your body got stronger, your presence got quieter, your circle got tighter, and as your identity became rooted in who you are, not who you lost, she began to realize the power she thought she had was never real. It was borrowed and borrowed from the version of you who didn't yet know his worth. She wanted to feel needed, but now she feels replaced, not by another woman, but by your purpose. And that hurts more than any revenge post ever could. Because there's no message you could send that's more devastating than the absence of one. There's no insult sharper than indifference. And there's no more poetic justice than watching her realize you never needed to respond. You didn't just move on, you moved up. And now when she thinks of you, she doesn't remember the man she left. She remembers the one she can't reach, the one who doesn't check her page, the one too focused on his future to look back at his past. Now, speak out and comment below. I control my mind, no one else does. Number 3, when you stop chasing, you become the obsession. She expected the pattern to continue. You are chasing, she is pulling away. You are apologizing, she is withholding. It gave her power, it validated her choice, and every time you reached out, it confirmed her belief that she mattered more than you mattered to yourself. But then something shifted. You stopped chasing, you stopped explaining, you stopped reacting altogether. In her world, the dynamic collapsed, and your value skyrocketed in that collapse. The man she once took for granted is now the man she can't read. The one who once flooded her with attention is now a ghost in her reality. She refreshes your profile, wondering what you're thinking, doing, and who you're with, but she sees nothing. No status updates, no stories aimed at her, no hints of longing. That silence breeds mystery, and mystery, for someone who once felt in control, is terrifying. You've gone from being predictable to being rare, and in doing so, you've shifted the psychological polarity of the relationship. People don't crave what chases them, they crave what withdraws from them. And the more she feels the absence of your attention, the more valuable it becomes in her mind. You're no longer the man who used to need her. You've become the man she needs validation from and isn't getting. The Stoics didn't seek to impress others. They didn't argue or perform. They mastered themselves quietly and consistently. And that's what you've done. You've stepped off the emotional battlefield and chosen the higher path that doesn't involve her. Not out of bitterness, not as a game, but chasing someone who no longer values you is an act of self-betrayal. And now she feels it. That loss of attention becomes a slow burn. She begins to think about your silence more than she ever thought about your words. Did he move on? Does he care? Was I really that easy to forget? These questions loop in her mind, and that loop becomes an obsession, not because you manipulated her into it, but because you removed yourself from the narrative she thought she controlled. Meanwhile, you're not even playing anymore. You're focused on the next chapter of your life, on becoming the man you always had the potential to be. Every day you align with your values, and every moment you invest in yourself, you become more unreachable. And that distance doesn't just protect you, it redefines you. When she finally realizes the shift in dynamic, she may try to re-engage, but it will be too late, because the man she's now obsessed with isn't standing still anymore. He's moving forward with purpose. He's become the prize, not by demanding to be, but by living as if he already is. Now speak out and comment below. I don't chase, I attract by rising. Number 4. Her new relationship is just a distraction from the void you left. She's smiling in pictures, she's tagging someone new. On the surface, she's moved on and found something better. But what you're really seeing isn't love, it's performance. She attempts to convince the world, and more importantly, herself, that she made the right choice. But deep beneath the filters and captions, she's running. Not forward, but away. Away from the void you left behind. Away from the silence that still haunts her when the lights go out. A rebound isn't about building something new, it's about patching a hole with the first thing available. She didn't replace you, she replaced the comfort, the familiarity, the emotional validation you used to give. That new relationship isn't built on depth, but on fear. Fear of being alone, fear of having to face the weight of her own decision. And while she may be physically present with someone else, mentally she's still tethered to the idea of you. You were there through the highs and lows. You saw sides of her, but this new guy hasn't even glimpsed. And though she might pretend to be happier, she's comparing everything. The way he speaks, the way he holds eye contact, the way he responds to her vulnerability. She measures him against the standard you unknowingly set. And the longer you remain absent, the more clearly she starts to feel the difference. Not in moments of joy, but in moments of silence. When things aren't exciting, when comfort fades, that's when your absence grows louder. But this only works if you've truly let go, if you're still watching, still posting with the hope of being noticed, still hoping she breaks. Then you haven't evolved. You're stuck in the same emotional loop, hoping she validates what you couldn't give yourself. The power comes not from waiting for her new relationship to fall apart, but from becoming so focused on your own evolution that you wouldn't take her back even if she begged. She'll begin to question everything when she realizes that her new partner doesn't anchor her like you did. And that's the moment regret blooms. But by then, the man she once knew will be long gone, replaced by a version of you she no longer has access to. Let her post. Let her pretend. Let her laugh into someone else's shoulder. None of it changes the fact that she walked away from something rare. And while she plays pretend, you're building. Quietly, relentlessly, with purpose. Not to make her jealous, but because that's who you are now. A man who doesn't need to be chosen to know his value. Now, speak out and comment below. I rise while she runs. I build while she distracts. Number 5. Begging destroys attraction. Disappearance creates doubt. After she walked away, you felt the instinct to chase, to explain, to remind her of your worth. You thought if you just said the right words, shared the right memory, and showed her how much you cared, maybe she'd come back. But the truth is brutal. The more you chase, the more she confirms her decision to leave. Whenever you reach out, she hears, "You were right to walk away. I can't live without you." And that's not love. That's submission. That's self-destruction in slow motion. When you beg, you don't just lose her respect, you lose your own. You turn yourself into a man who places another person's approval above his own dignity. And deep down, she knows this. She may not say it aloud, but she feels it. And that feeling doesn't pull her back, it pushes her further away. Because no one desires what's too easy to have. No one respects the man who can't walk away from what no longer respects him. But silence? Silence creates mystery. Disappearance builds tension. Something shifts when she no longer hears from you or sees traces of you orbiting her life. At first, she may pretend not to care, but as days become weeks and your absence becomes undeniable, the questions start forming. Why hasn't he called? Is he already with someone else? Was I not as important as I thought? And that doubt? That's what you've earned, not through manipulation but discipline. Because you didn't react. You didn't beg, you withdrew. Not to punish her, but to protect your peace. You declared silently that you would not argue for a place in someone's life who chose to walk out of yours. That kind of self-respect is rare, and in a world that's obsessed with noise, your silence speaks volumes. The Stoics taught that nothing external can harm a man who has mastered his internal state. When you no longer seek her validation, you free yourself from the cycle of disappointment. Stop needing her to see your value because you've already claimed it. Ironically, that's the moment she begins to notice it too. But by then, it's not about her anymore. It's about you, who you're becoming, what you're building, and how far you've come without needing anyone to save you. So let her wonder, let her feel your absence, let her try to interpret your silence. But never break it to feed her ego. Because a man who disappears with purpose is more powerful than a man who begs for attention. Now speak out and comment below. I disappear with purpose. I don't beg, I build. Number 6. Disappearing completely makes her feel what words never could. She expected noise, she expected emotional outbursts, desperate texts, and late-night apologies wrapped in longing. That's the story she told herself when she left, that you'd break down, validate her importance, confirm her value through your struggle. But instead, she got silence. Real silence. Not the kind that hopes for attention, the kind that signals you're no longer there, not physically, emotionally, or even mentally. And that silence is deafening. It's not just your lack of messages, it's the complete erasure of your presence. No comments, no likes, no subtle Instagram stories aimed at her, just nothing. In a world where people use social media as a cry for help or a tool for attention, your decision to disappear entirely is the loudest message of all. It says, you no longer have access to me, and that truth cuts deeper than any insult ever could. She'll pretend not to notice, she'll act like it doesn't bother her, but the mind hates uncertainty. She was prepared for your reaction. She had a script in her head, maybe a few emotional power plays up her sleeve. But now she's left without any leverage. No response, no clue, no closure, just questions. Why isn't he reaching out? Did he find someone else? Did he never care as much as I thought? The Stoic man doesn't disappear to create a reaction. He disappears because he understands that not everything deserves an answer. The highest form of emotional strength is restraint. You're not withholding attention as a tactic. You've simply moved beyond the point of needing to be understood. You've reclaimed your space, mind, and focus, and she's no longer entitled to any of it. This kind of absence plants seeds of doubt. And doubt always grows in silence. She starts checking your profile, she rereads old messages, she might even reach out just to test the waters. But now the dynamic is reversed. She's reaching, you're silent. She's wondering, you're focused. You've become the question mark in her story, and the mystery she can't solve. But none of this matters unless your silence is real, not performed, not timed, not emotionally baited. True silence happens when you're no longer interested in the outcome, because you're too invested in your own becoming. When you stop performing and start evolving, you stop caring about her response. And ironically, that's when she starts to feel everything she hoped you would. She may never admit it, she might never say the words, but she will feel the weight of your absence, not because you punished her, but because she finally realized you're no longer waiting behind that door. Now speak out and comment below. My silence is sacred. I don't explain my evolution. Number 7. She chose to leave, so you chose to forget. The moment she walked away, she said that you were no longer worth holding on to, and that decision, though painful, was a gift in disguise. Because now you are free, not just from her, but from the emotional dependency that once made her the center of your world. She expected to linger in your mind, live in the background of your every thought, and remain a priority even in her absence. But that's not what happened. Instead, you cut the cord. You didn't chase, you didn't fight, you walked in a new direction, and you never looked back. This isn't bitterness, this is alignment. She made her choice, and you honored it. Not with arguments, not with attempts to change her mind, but with silence and progress. Because the man who tries to convince someone to stay is still giving his power away. But the man who accepts and redirects, he reclaims all of it. Through the lens of Stoicism, we understand that the past is not to be held or grieved. It is to be acknowledged, accepted, and then released. And that's what you did. You didn't dwell in nostalgia. You didn't cling to what was. You buried the illusion and began constructing a reality with nothing to do with her presence. And as you began to focus fully on yourself, on your goals, strength, and discipline, she began to feel something she wasn't prepared for: irrelevance. Because what truly unsettles someone isn't anger or hatred, it's not even love. It's complete emotional neutrality. When she can no longer affect you, she questions her significance. Was I really that easy to forget? Did I matter at all? But none of that matters to you anymore, because you're not trying to make her feel anything. You're not hoping she realizes your worth. You've simply stopped placing her at the center of your story. She's not the ending. She's not the villain. She's not even the lesson. She's just someone who used to be part of the journey, but the path forward doesn't include her anymore. And this detachment, this clarity, is what separates the ordinary man from the Stoic man. You're not waiting for her to return. You're not crafting messages in your head. You're not feeding fantasies of closure or second chances. You're building, you're ascending, and she's fading. Not because you forced it, but because that happens when someone removes themselves from your life and you refuse to let them keep living in your mind rent-free. Now you see her for what she is, a chapter that ended. And the story? It's still being written, without her. Now speak out and comment below. She left, I moved on. I choose clarity over chaos. Number 8. Purpose is magnetic, love alone is not. She thought she was the center of your world, and for a time maybe she was. You revolved around her moods, her attention, her presence. You lost sleep wondering if she was drifting away. You neglected your path, discipline, and deeper mission, all in the name of love. But love without direction is chaos. And the truth is, she didn't leave because you loved her too little. She left because you loved her more than you loved your purpose. That kind of imbalance always cracks. When a man makes a woman the sun in his sky, she loses the gravity that once drew her in. But when a man is grounded in mission, when his life is led by purpose, direction, and vision, he becomes impossible to ignore. Stoicism doesn't teach us to detach from emotion. It teaches us to anchor ourselves in something greater than emotion. It teaches us that discipline is devotion. A man's highest power is not in what he feels, but in what he builds. Something changed when you shifted your focus inward, when you returned to your craft, your mind, your body. You stopped being emotionally available, not out of spite, but because you simply had better things to do. You weren't waiting anymore. You were moving, progressing, growing. And that movement, the energy of a man in motion, is magnetic. People feel it. She felt it. Suddenly she saw you differently, not as the man who clung to her every word, but as the man who no longer even notices if she's watching. Because now you're chasing goals, not ghosts. And while she may have thought she was irreplaceable, your new energy says otherwise. She thought you'd be stuck in love, but now you're fueled by purpose, and that, more than anything, is what she'll regret losing. She'll compare the man you were to the man you've become. One was available, needy, and emotionally dependent. The other, composed, grounded, focused. The kind of man who doesn't check his phone for a reply because he's too busy fulfilling a vision she was never meant to understand. And here's the twist. The more you align with your purpose, the more desirable you become, not just to her but to everyone. Because a man who doesn't need love to feel whole becomes the kind of man everyone wants to be near. He doesn't chase affection, he attracts it. And he doesn't ask for respect, he commands it, by being deeply committed to something greater than himself. So no, you're not cold, you're clear. You're not bitter, you're focused. You're not heartless. You're just no longer willing to sacrifice your mission for a temporary emotion. Now speak out and comment below. My purpose is my power. I build, not beg. Number 9. She regrets leaving, but the door no longer exists. She walked away, thinking she was upgrading, maybe not in character, depth, or connection, but in excitement, novelty, or validation. She believed there was something better waiting for her. And at the time, maybe you believed that too. Maybe you thought she was right, that you had lost, that you weren't enough. But time has a way of exposing the truth. And as days turned into months, as you rose and she watched from a distance, something began to shift. The confidence she once had began to crack. She starts seeing you again, not the same man she left, but a man reborn, stronger, sharper, focused, and, more importantly, completely unaffected by her absence. She expected you to break, to chase, to circle back eventually. But you didn't. You evolved, quietly, relentlessly. You made your pain your compass and let discipline reshape your identity. And now the man you've become is no longer available to the woman who left. That realization hits her slowly. At first it's curiosity. What's he been up to? Then it's comparison. He looks better, sounds different, and seems more confident. And finally, it's regret. What if I made the wrong choice? But by then, you're no longer even looking in her direction. Not out of spite, but because she's no longer relevant in your world. This is where most men slip. When the ex returns, the message arrives and the door creaks open again. But the Stoic man doesn't just heal, he outgrows. You don't close the door, you remove the entire building. Because the man aligned with his higher purpose doesn't return to something that once fractured his soul. He doesn't revisit lessons he's already learned. He doesn't go back to validate his growth. He walks forward because his destination is too important to detour for nostalgia. Her regret is real, and it's sharp, but it's not your responsibility. She left a man who needed her. She's now watching a man who doesn't. And that contrast breaks her, not because you punished her, but because you became untouchable. And here's the truth. You wouldn't even choose her now. Not because she's a bad person, but because the man you are now wouldn't fit into the life you once lived with her. You're aiming higher, thinking bigger. You've learned to protect your peace, to honor your energy, and never again negotiate your worth with someone who once treated it as optional. Now speak out and comment below. Her regret doesn't move me. I've moved on without it. Number 10. She thought you'd wait. Now she's the one waiting. When she walked away, she didn't think she was ending anything. She thought she was pausing it. She believed she could go out, explore, see what else the world had to offer, and that you'd be right there, waiting, because you always were, always responsive, always available, always reassure her of her value by orbiting her like the sun. And even as she left, some of her felt secure, knowing that if it didn't work out, she could return. That door would always be open. But that door has quietly, completely vanished. She thought time was her advantage, that you'd wait in stillness while she chased stimulation. But while she was out seeking validation, you were building transformation. You weren't standing still. You were sharpening your body, your mind, your focus. You buried the old version of yourself and constructed a man she no longer even recognizes. And now you're not just gone, you're unavailable. Not emotionally, existentially, because the man who once needed her is gone, and the man you've become is beyond her reach. Now she waits. She checks her phone. She looks at your profile from a shadow account. She wonders what you're doing, who you're with, why you haven't messaged. She keeps the door cracked just in case, but it never opens, because you've removed yourself from the dynamic entirely. Not to punish her, not as a game, but because the version of you that longed for her attention has been replaced by a version that only craves progress. The greatest revenge was never making her jealous, it was becoming the man who has no reason to look back. A man who is so deeply fulfilled by his mission, his inner peace hand is a new life, that he doesn't even flinch at the thought of returning to what once hurt him. And now she is the one waiting for a message that won't come, for a window that's been bricked over, for a second chance with a man who doesn't even revisit the past, because he's too busy building the future. You didn't get closure. You didn't get an apology. You didn't get a clean ending, but you got something better. The opportunity to outgrow everything she thought defined you. And while she lingers in doubt, hoping for a sign that you still care, you continue forward, unshaken, unattached, unstoppable. Now, speak out and comment below. She waits in the past, I build in the future. You started this journey feeling lost and abandoned, wondering if you'd ever be enough. But now, you see, it wasn't about her at all. It was always about you. Your power was always yours. She didn't take it. She only showed you where you had hidden it. If you're ready to embrace your full potential, like this video, subscribe, and comment below. I am unstoppable. Stay strong, keep evolving. Your future doesn't wait for anyone. It's built by you.